I was camping this summer with my buddy Mike, and literally he pulls out like this knife and he's like, "This is my prized possession." I'm like, "Okay, why is this knife a prize?" This is the first time I heard of MKC. He's like, "Yeah, check this out. My wife got it for me. $700 knife." I was like, "You spent $700 on a knife?" But you should have seen like the pride he had in his eyes showing it to me. I was like, "Those are made in Montana?" He's like, "Yeah, Montana Knife Company. You haven't heard of him? He's all over Rogan." I had no idea. I had no idea about the company until then.
I desperately want a knife. I spent a lot of time this last week on their website, their Instagram, like looking at knives, but I don't have a need. Like I want to fit in so bad, but that's just not who I am. And I tried that with golf.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't like golf, but I want to like it. I want to fit in, but it's just not.
Well, that's because you're a huge branding guy. So you see like like how well MKC, and golf's really good at this.
Yeah.
The branding, and you're probably like, "I want that."
Right.
Which is pretty cool what Josh has done. I mean, a knife's a knife, and he would beg to differ.
Right.
But when it's attached to a cool brand, like that signifies Montana, you're like, "Okay, I'm all in."
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need one either.
But I want one.
I want
because
one
of the brand. I believe in the brand. I take pride in the brand. Like,
yeah,
he was on Joe Rogan. He's with these other, Fox. Like, that's cool. Like, I want to be a part of the family. Like, he's created a culture. I feel like it's pretty cool.
Well, that was pretty cool in the episode too, when he's talking about what was it? When you cut yourself? What is that called?
Oh, the Blood Brothers?
Yeah, the Blood Brothers.
It's genius marketing.
Yeah. It's like, hey, this is how we're going to get out of lawsuits. Blood Brothers. Here's a t-shirt.
Yeah.
I thought that was cool. He's smart.
Yeah. He's a great guy. How was your weekend?
Good. Yeah. Lots of football. A little bit about coaching basketball for me, but, and also sledding. Rainbow Hill.
Really? I have not this year,
but it was good. Everybody's done Rainbow Hill. Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome.
Just you and your wife go sledding, or
we
took your
daughter and her
family
little brother and sister.
Fun.
It was awesome. How about you?
Good. We were up in Whitefish for the weekend. Another place where I want to fit in so badly, but don't.
Good luck.
Just stayed at the lodge, just relaxing. It was actually a Christmas gift for my wife, just a relaxing getaway. Watched football, had good dinner, had a couple of good dinners, sat by the fire, drove home. And then Avery, our oldest, turned 16 on the 21st, Sunday. So I have a 16-year-old, so celebrated her, had a party, made her feel loved and valued, and just a full weekend of family.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
Well, Brandon, I'm pumped about Josh. This episode was unbelievable.
I keep saying it, like one of my favorites. Like, this is one of my favorites. This one is one of my favorites.
He's slowly becoming one of the most popular Missoulians. And what was refreshing about Josh is he's this guy from Lincoln that's salt of the earth, down to earth, just a normal dude from the boonies of Lincoln. I liked him.
He's
a lot. He reminded me of Dylan Folk. So I think it was a really good episode, and I think that people are going to love it.
Here we go. This is it. Montana Knife Company, Josh Smith. Just so it's like everywhere we go.
That's cool. So. Yeah, it's been insane. It's just been insane. Yeah, it's the amount of like shirts we sent out last year and hats, and that's the thing. Like, it's not just knives; it's just the brand. Is cool.
I kind of want to dive into that. How you did that.
Yeah. Well, I got a smart business partner too, which helps the marketing side, because that's one thing I knew from the start. Are we rolling or not?
Oh, we rolling? Oh, okay.
Sweet.
I just keep going.
Yeah, just keep talking.
Well, like even your social media, like the shipping, like the number of packages going out is unbelievable.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, we finally talked the post office into coming and picking stuff up at our shop, because we're like down a dirt road that isn't where the post office normally goes. So, but we have the the mail truck that picks up the mail for all the post offices, just the big van truck that he stops by and picks it up. But I mean, it's 3 or 4 or 5 carts a day, like the big mail carts full every day of hats and shirts. And we've just been really fortunate with like the way that people and the message that's resonated with like making American, manufacturing in America, buying American, and then standing behind the product. Like the fact that we sharpen them for free and, we stand behind the product. If it gets lost in the mail on the way to the customer, we send them a new knife. Like it's just how you should run a business.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's honestly, it's all pretty simple. It's just not what you find from big, huge brands,
So going from making like knives individually to a mass scale, what was the challenges with that?
Everything.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, I did custom knives for like 10 years full time as a living kind of after college and I was doing high end customs. I mean, they were $2,000 to $5,000 a piece. So they were like pieces of artwork. So, I mean, one knife might take a month, but so to transition from that mindset, well, then, in between there, like when the economy 08, 09, 2010 happened, the first thing people cut out of their budget is $5,000 pocket knives, naturally. Yeah. So I started kind of wondering, and of course, it's just like today. You watch the news back then and it was like, the world's end and we're heading into a depression, like, and I'm sitting there with 4 young kids and I was like, I just don't know if making art knives is going to get us through. So I got a job for Northwestern Energy, just as a backhoe operator initially. And then I ended up getting an apprenticeship and eventually became a journeyman lineman. So, during those lineman years, I had this idea all along of Montana Knife Company. And, and I had registered the name back when I was 19 years old.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't launch it till 2020. I was 39. So for 20 years, I talked about it to my friends. So I'm sure they thought I was full of BS, like just quit talking about it. You're never going to do it. And so when I got remarried, my new wife was like, I was telling her about the idea and she's like, well, you should do it. Like, basically you should quit your job and do it. And I was like, well, baby steps here. So,
how old is Montana Knife Company? Like the actual
2020.
2020. Okay.
Yeah. So 3 years.
A great time to start a new business too.
Yeah. Right. Diving into COVID. No. And that's a fact. Like I showed some prototypes around in February of 2020, an event in South Carolina. And like literally as we were flying home, it was like on the news kind of, it was becoming a thing. And a week later, it was all the news, and 2 weeks later, the things were completely falling apart. So, perfect time to decide to have a career change. But when I launched we launched the website in July of 2020, I was still a lineman. So I was doing this at night and in the mornings and on the weekends. And I was still hand grinding all the handles. In fact, like it was me and my kids. Brandon, my business partner, we partnered in like September that year. I was hiring him at that point to just like build me a site and do some marketing stuff. And I was realizing through that process how good he was. I just initially hired him, frankly, as a photographer.
How did you know him and how did you find him?
Through that event in February, I was just telling some of the content guys for that company, like, I need to find a guy to like help me with some photos and stuff. And they were like, oh, well, we know a guy in Montana. And this was in South Carolina. And I was like, oh yeah. And he was up in Kalispell. So I hired him to come down and take some photos. And I was trying to get content so then I could go have someone take that and build a website.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And he was like, well, I can build you a website. I was like, all right, sure. And I mean, honestly, like a couple days later, he's got like an initial like homepage and then the next day it's like more. And I mean, and everything, my vision, everything that I was thinking of, like I knew what I would like when I saw it, but I couldn't make it happen. Well, everything he sent me, I was like, oh, it's perfect. Like, that's exactly what I want. And so as we went through that summer, I was realizing like, he was exactly what I needed, but I also couldn't afford to pay him for very much longer. So, I offered him partnership, like, hey, let's do this together. And I think I could tell that he believed in like my idea and he could help execute it. So, but during that time I'm hand grinding handles, and I went from making one knife a month to I'm making 200 knives. I think I'm being super productive. And then you start to realize, like, if a process takes, a couple minutes to do times 200, it's a lot of minutes. And I started like going through that process through that winter, realizing that like I needed to learn way more. Like this wasn't going to be scalable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just researched, man, like it's funny. You can't just go to some major knife company and like say, how do you do this? We want to come after you someday.
Yeah, we want to copy you.
Yeah. We want to
Compete.
Yeah. So lots of conversations, lots of Googling, lots of just researching and trial and error. And by the end of that year, January 1st of 2021, my boss at Northwestern Energy, I was needing the last day of the year off to go meet up with Thomas Rhett, the country music singer. And I was out of vacation. And I was like, dude, I need this day off. And he's like, well, you're out. And I'm like, yeah, but my vacation resets like on the 1st. And so finally I was like, it wasn't going to work out. It's kind of corporate stuff. So I said, well, then I'll be done at noon. And I quit. Which was scary as hell, honestly. Because I mean, a lineman job for like the utility like that, it's a great pay and it's secure like forever. Unless you get yourself fired, it's a career job with benefits.
With a good company.
Yeah. And I quit. And so I drove home. That was January 1st of 2021 or December 30th of 20. And so we were kind of all in at that point. Brandon had quit his job and we didn't take a paycheck for that whole first 6 months. And, God, we just started growing. And like that first year, our goal was like $100,000 and we ended up doing just shy of 2 million. It was insane. So the point is like, we also like, I started realizing too, like you asked about the process and how much I learned. I mean, everything, like I say, I was doing things wrong and like, we were first making 200 knives and then eventually it's like, well, let's try and make 500. And we didn't borrow any money. We didn't want to put our families more at risk. So whatever money we made off those 200 knives, then we made 200 more. And then it was like, okay, well, we have enough money to cut like 500 blades. And we did that for a while. And then it was like, gosh, maybe we'll do 700. And that's kind of why also in that first year or so, we went a lot of stretches with no knives on our website because we'd sell out and then we were trying to get the rest done. And that's where I started to realize like, oh, the process I was doing for 200 doesn't work for 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
And we started building from there,
So your system, your strategy, it's all, you made it up as you went. I mean, there really wasn't a template that you guys copied.
No.
You just figured it out.
Completely figured it out.
I mean, you said so much I'm fascinated by. And if I recall, at like 19, you were I don't remember the right term, youngest master bladesmith in the world.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, I started making knives when I was 11.
Okay. So very, very precise and do excellent work and proficient in creating a knife. What's the training program like for the guys on your team that are now doing the work, like making sure it's the same standards that
that's a good question.
Yourself? Like how do you get your team on board?
Well, it's interesting because that's part of why it's Montana Knife Company. It's not Josh Smith Knives. Like I still have Josh Smith Knives, and that's like if I make a custom, like you can be assured that I did 100% of the work. Mm-hmm. It's me. It's an art piece, right? So with the manufacturing, my thing is I would walk into like Sportsman's Warehouse or Bob Ward's and I would look at these knives on the shelf and it would frustrate me because there wasn't the quality in a manufactured like production knife that I thought there could be. And so I thought there was a huge gap between like the high end, like, or the like really high quality custom.
Yeah.
And what like a hunter that really cared about his gear, or a hiker that really cared about their gear and is, they're buying North Face gear or they're buying Sitka gear and all this Gore-Tex and fancy rain gear and stuff. But then they were spending like $20 on a piece of crap knife.
Sure.
So, when I started teaching it, it's a lot of the production stuff is more machine work, right? It's like CNC machines, it's not hand ground and hand finished in the same way. Now, initially they kind of were, it was like a mix. Like I said, my 14-year-old daughter back then was hand grinding handles, but what you get is a tiny variation. So every handle's a little different, which means you can't mass produce a sheath because it doesn't fit. Like every sheath has to be custom.
Sure.
And so, I started teaching like baby steps of the processes that we could do in house. The first kid I hired was Tristan Richter. He was still a senior at Hellgate High School, and he was still in school. And now he's managing like 10 people in our shop, and he's on salary. So it's like wild in just a few years how that went. But the biggest thing was attention to detail. So even though it's manufactured and it's machined and there's less handwork, we still have some for sure, and they're all hand sharpened. But a lot of it was a critical eye of making sure that, hey, machines screw up. Like, make sure that we're kicking parts out that aren't good. We're quality controlling things, and just making sure like the edges are super sharp. That's the other thing too. You'd go pick a brand new knife up at a store, and I'm like, this thing's not even that sharp. Yeah. And then the other thing I brought from the custom side is what most people don't understand that makes a really good knife is it's like the edge geometry, how thick the blade is. A lot of companies are afraid of their knife breaking, so they make them thick and heavy, but that actually makes a really poor tool in the field. It's heavy. It's hard for people to sharpen. Everybody's like, oh, I can't sharpen knives. And it's like, then they hand me the knife. I'm like, I can't hardly sharpen that thing on a stone. Like, I need a belt grinder. Yeah. So we went thin, light, easy to sharpen, steel selection, heat treatment selection. Like, I took a lot of the stuff in the custom world I would do if you ordered a custom hunter, and I made that in a production model. It's not as fancy. It's not as, I don't know. It's just, the materials are more like G10, like a synthetic material for a handle. But that's better, frankly, than if you order a custom knife from me with like ironwood on it. It's wood, it's natural material. It's actually not ideal for like a hard use, knife.
In that first year, I think you said 100,000 was the goal, and ended up being like 2 million.
Mm-hmm.
What was the reason behind that success? What was the marketing? Did something happen that put you guys on the map? What
would you tap into?
Yeah, I think as funny as we kind of laugh about starting a company during COVID, I think it was also the culmination and the height of people being tired of, like, we were at that moment in this world shipping crisis where we couldn't land any ships and ports, and all these products from overseas are sitting out at sea. And I think people wanted to start seeing more stuff made in the US and manufactured here. And then the other thing that we did a really good job is we had no money, right? So we gave away our knives. We gave them to people that we thought were, like the end user that we wanted to see running them. And we didn't ask a thing of those people. We just started saying, hey, try it out, see what you think. And those people within the hunt industry just started sharing them, and talking about them on their own. Just like, hey, have you guys tried this? Or they would give them away to other people. And we started just seeing this. I built it, honestly, the company that year through relationships, like at Total Archery Challenge, going to places and just introducing ourselves and not asking for anything, but just handing out some knives to people that we thought. And it's really what you call community marketing. Yeah. We did it through grassroots relationships and not through like buy an ad in Field and Stream.
Yeah.
And we built a community that actually they were basically like, we're behind you and we see what you're trying and you're like nobody. So we're going to help push it because we think the idea is right. The values are right. The quality of the product is good. And, honestly, that's how it started to grow. It was wild.
Josh, take us back to when you were a kid. What was it about the knife making process that grabbed you? Like, why, of all the things that can grab a little boy? It's got to
be pretty uncommon for an 11-year-old to say, I want to make knives. I mean, that's
rare. I look at it like, what 11-year-old doesn't want to play with knives? Like, that's a good point. I think I was that. I'm like, knives, guns, 11 years old. I'm living in, I grew up in Lincoln, Montana, where it's
that's making more sense.
Hunting and fishing. And my little league baseball coach, Rick Dunkerley, would bring his knives to practice and just, he was kind of a beginner knife maker at that time as well. And he would just show his knives to like the dads at practice, like, oh, look what I'm working on.
Sure. All the dads would be like so invested in it.
And a bunch of the kids were like, oh, that's cool, and looking at them. But I don't know. There must have been something about me where I think I was a pretty good kid. I was pretty responsible. My folks had an excavation company, and I ran equipment and did a lot of things that took responsibility. So they bought me one of his knives for Christmas that year, and then he invited me up to make one. And I think it's like he trusted me to be in his shop, but I also think he probably intended it to be like, make one and then beat it, kid.
Yeah.
But then I bug him to make another one. And finally, after making probably 3 or 4 in his shop, I think his way of getting rid of me was like, well, if you want to be a knife maker, you got to have your own shop. And so I had a lawn mowing business as well. So I took my lawn mowing money and I bought a belt grinder. And, my dad had a shop just for like mechanicing on equipment. I set that up in there. And after about a year of working in there, I was making kind of a mess out of his shop. So he was like, you need your own shop. So he just enclosed, we actually cut with our own sawmill the boards for it and stuff, but we just enclosed like a 10x10 lean-to, like uninsulated, freezing ass cold lean-to. And I'd stand there and grind. Then my dad built the benches like at this height, like the height that he thought I would be someday, not where I was currently. So I had to stand on a milk crate for like 3 years to grind knives at my grinder. But I started going to shows when I was 13 years old. I went to the Eugene, Oregon knife show, and I'd ride along with those knife makers. There was no internet. There was no YouTube. You had to go ask people, like, how did you do that? Will you show me how to do that?
I don't know what made me think of it just now, but all the knives at 50,000 silver dollar bar, I'm sure I'm sure they're terrible quality.
Yeah.
But I'm sure as a kid walking through there, pretty cool.
Oh, yeah. You see kids today. If you stand in there for a whole day and watch, I guarantee it's going to be little boys. Mm-hmm. Their parents are getting gas and little boys are standing in there staring at the knives, yeah. So yeah, I just kind of took after it, and something about me, I don't know. I always had a little bit of a business mind. Well, frankly, it was like, hold on a second. I can make knives and then I can sell them and make money.
Yeah.
I can make money at this. This is insane.
Because you loved it.
Yeah. How cool is this? I would make knives for free, but now I sold my first 2 to my science teacher and my math teacher for $20. And I thought I was like, awesome. I'm a pro. I'm a going pro.
How do you, I think there's multiple knives. You have a customer buys a knife. Your knives are quality. You sharpen them. They're going to last for life. How do you get a repeat customer? Like, how many knives does somebody need? Or are you going into
all of them
industries? Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We have an amazing stat. Like, we have more customers that have 2 or more knives than have 1, which is wild. So that means when they buy a knife, like the average customer, I think, has 2.4 knives of ours. Okay. So when they buy 1, they're going to buy a second, which speaks to the product. And also people like to collect knives. They also like to give them as gifts.
Yeah, they do.
So our stat might say this guy has 6 knives, but he might only have 1. Mm-hmm. He might have given his kids or his buddies or whatever knives. And also there's different knives for different jobs. So he might have a super light knife for this. He might have 3 chef's knives in his kitchen. Or the wife, she might have chef's knives or hunting knives. And I think it's an interesting product because also you don't have to be just dedicated to one brand if you don't want to. Like, if you're into knives, you can have a Buck or a Benchmade or a Gerber or Anna Montana Knife Company. I always look at people who make like companies that do like hunting camo. To me, it'd be hard. Like, how do you convert, if you're a Sika gear guy, how do you convert that guy over to where because you have to like change out all your gear. It's like your costume.
Yeah.
You have to change your whole uniform. Like, if you're a Denver Broncos player, you just can't wear, Eagles pants, right? Like, you convert the whole uniform. So it's also kind of easy in that way. And we see, there's a lot of people out there with like 20 and 30 of our knives, 40 of our knives, like literally.
Crazy.
Which has also been really, really good for business. And we're actually excited when we get new customers, because new customers means we're educating new people to the brand. And now that's the ability to retarget them with an email, sell them a chef's knife or sell them a different kind of knife. And then like down the road when we make pocket knives and folding knives, tactical knives. So like, it's interesting. It's not like you just need one. You can buy multiple and you can collect, and they're make for fantastic gifts. The other piece that I've been talking about from day one that really bothered me for so long was when I was a kid, and I feel like for generations, forever, especially men have passed down knives and guns.
Mm-hmm.
Like this has been what dudes have done forever.
Mm-hmm.
I had my grandpa's knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed it down to me. It
Yeah.
means a lot to me.
And what's the brand?
It's a buck.
Okay. A lot of people don't even know, or the brand doesn't necessarily matter. All that matters is who carried it.
Mm-hmm.
Your grandfather. And I always tell people it doesn't have to be the most, like a buck knife's not the most fancy or like elaborate knife, right? It doesn't matter. It matters whose hands it was in.
Yeah. The
hands, the experiences that knife was through. Like, wouldn't you like to know everywhere that knife went with your grandfather?
Yeah.
It would be cool, right? And people have come in my shop and been like, oh, my grandfather was in Vietnam, or, he was in World War II and this was his pocket knife. And God, I'd love to have known like where this thing's been, what bothered me was I was starting to see this replaceable blade fad take off where people couldn't sharpen a knife or didn't know how. And so it was easier in our like hit the easy button world to buy a replaceable blade Chinese $20 knife. And when that blade gets dull, click it out. And this is my other pet peeve, throw it in the bushes and then throw a new blade in and go back to work on your elk or your deer or whatever, box cut or whatever you're doing. Well, how about you just learn to sharpen it? And you're now throwing away something that was always a generational item that, when we're our age, the three of us sitting here, we're not thinking about like this knife in my pocket. I'm not thinking about my grandkid that's going to be carrying it someday. But they're 2 or 3 generations from now, somebody might have this knife and be like, oh, my great grandfather was this knife maker and he started this company and right. Or my grandfather had this podcast in Missoula and he liked to hike and do this and that and snowboard. And like, I'd love to have known where this knife was and what it did. Right. And where it went. We also knives, guns, art and jewelry, maybe an old car or something. We're definitely like the cars of today definitely aren't going to be running in 100 years. So it bothered me when I was seeing that. And that's another thing with the brand, like buy products from brands that will maintain them. So like, okay, if you're not good at sharpening, send it back to us. We'll sharpen it for free. I would rather you send that knife to us once a year and cost us an hour of our time. But then when you get it back, you're reinvigorated about the product. You're excited about it. It's sharp. You're ready to put it through a whole nother year of use, more experience on it. And you keep doing that year after year after year. And someday you might put that knife up and be like, I'm going to retire that thing. It's 1.5 inches shorter than when I got it, and get a new knife. Right. And carry it. And, watches are another thing. You see people that have, my grandfather or my grandmother or whatever had this watch forever, so that's, I think, part of why jewelry is special, like to women, especially where like that's a necklace. That's a pearl necklace that your great grandmother wore. Like, it doesn't matter that it was pearls. It matters who wore it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It's legacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you walk in Target today, tell me how much you're going to see in there that's not made to throw away in the next 3 years.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you wanted to combat that culture.
Yeah. I think that we as a society should combat that. Like, and I'm not like a crazy environmentalist or whatever. Like I'm, but I do hunt. I do go out and enjoy our environment. I care a lot about our habitat and our environment and everything around us. Like, I'm not some crazy person, but I also do care. And it drives me crazy also when I see people take those replaceable blades out and just like throw them in the bushes. You're throwing a half sharp razor blade off into the bushes. Like, yeah. So, you go to the landfill and you just see, like, go up in the Missoula landfill and like, look at what you see laying in there. The furniture today, like if you bought one good piece of furniture custom built by some old guy down the street, it's going to last forever compared to something at IKEA,
Right.
Yeah. So
let's jump into Josh's segment where we like to ask just rapid fire questions about Missoula, since we are on the Missoula podcast. You say you're originally from Lincoln, but what is your first original memory of Missoula?
The pulp mill. I remember coming to, I remember coming to town, and this is like not the greatest memory, but
It's
the
honest.
truth. Like
Yeah.
we would come to, we called it town to get groceries, and I remember it stunk, and then when I moved to Frenchtown, like it was still operational, and it was sad we lost those jobs, but I do remember like. When I was a little kid, like, we going to Missoula yet? Is that the town that smells?
That's awesome.
So,
not much has changed.
It's
the
definitely
fresh air of
it's
Lincoln.
definitely a lot better. It's definitely a lot better. That's for sure.
Big coffee drinking culture here in Missoula. Do you have a go-to drink or coffee place?
Good Americano
Good Americano.
all day long. The one reason I was able to afford to make knives at home and quit my job was because now I can't go buy coffee 3 times a day. Like that was like a giant part of like the family budget was because I'm drinking coffee right now. I drink coffee every night before bed. Like I'll make a cup at 10, have a cup and go to bed. Like I wish it actually kept me up, but it doesn't. But those gals down there at that Rose Hours parking lot, I mean, one, they're gorgeous girls, but 2, like, when you pull up there, they see in line, your coffee's like already ready.
Awesome.
So I think they do.
That's
and their
impressive.
coffee's really good. I don't care how pretty you are. If your coffee doesn't taste good, I'm not coming back. But it helps when it's good and they're pretty.
Do you have a favorite restaurant in Missoula?
I mean, it's kind of low, but I really like, it used to be Guy's Steakhouse.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I like it out there. I like the Depot. Yeah.
Do you take your own knife to cut your steak when you go eat?
100%.
All right, just making sure.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
100%.
What zip code do you live in?
59834.
I'm Frenchtown. Weirdest thing about Missoula to you is what?
The weirdest thing about Missoula, the slant streets.
Mhm.
How drunk were those people when they laid that out? Like you go to Great Falls, it's streets 1 through whatever,
Right.
and avenues 1 through whatever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you've been here or not, you can find your way around. And I don't care if you've grown up in Missoula. I don't know.
It's tough.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
years
had to
ago,
do a U-turn to come to your place.
yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to get
Yeah.
anywhere. I feel like years ago, like Missoula planning, they were playing like that pickup sticks game. They just dropped the sticks and how they landed. They're like, there it is. That's Missoula. Those
Yeah.
are the streets.
I read an article on like there was some disagreements with the planners back then,
It's
and
crazy.
one person had one idea of how they wanted it to orient things. And I mean, obviously the river kind of jacked it all up,
Right.
but like it could have stayed straight still, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bunch of ego, 2 guys.
Oh, yeah.
And it's usually
That's what it sounded like
most
if
problems.
that story's true, but yeah, let's make everything on a grid and then just throw some cross-sectional stuff in there just
Right in
for
the middle.
yeah,
Just keep it
for
for
the rest of time.
keep you on your toes. What do you love most about Missoula?
The outdoor opportunities.
Yeah.
I mean, between fishing, skiing, hunting, hiking, the rivers, I mean, everything about all that is amazing. The fact that you can get to Glacier pretty quickly, reasonably. You can get to, down Southwest Montana, Yellowstone, Dillon. Like, I just think the Bitterroot, and then over into Idaho. So like, I think that's what a lot of people, we've hired a lot of people. We have almost 50 employees now.
Wow.
So these people coming in, I think it's a draw. It's a challenge doing what we're doing in a small area. We have less people to choose from with specific skill sets that we need. But once they come here, I think it's also then easier for us to maybe keep them because they fall in love with all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read, is there any particular book that you've read that has been instrumental in your growth, development as an entrepreneur, made a great impact in your life?
No.
No.
No books.
He's from
honestly,
Lincoln. Like,
I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, no, I'm not a huge reader, even though I do like listening to, I listen to quite a few books now. I just finished, Undaunted Courage, the Stephen Ambrose,
That book's awesome.
book about
How long did that
Lewis and
take you?
Clark. I mean, I did it pretty fast because once I dive into something, and it helps listening to it.
Yeah.
Like you can be if I was reading it, obviously be a challenge, but just listening and visualizing, like when I hunt, that's one thing I love about hunting is like, you do get up into areas where it is just you and nature, but like, imagine being on top of that mountain and looking, if you're on top of Blue Mountain and you're looking down into Missoula and you see nothing, like that had to have been wild. And what they went through and, that whole party, and then listening to what it was like with the wildlife, with the buffalo, with the Indians, I think that's all just badass. So
Awesome. You passed. Those were the questions. We'll jump back into your story now.
Yeah.
You seem like obviously a very laid back country guy from Lincoln, exactly what I'd expect. How have you handled this, like, I guess, rise in notoriety? Has that been overwhelming to you? Individually, I know you want that for the company, but individually, just for yourself.
Yeah. My kids keep me humble because they make fun of me all the time. They're in high school now. So, they were making fun of me last night, actually. No, I don't. It's been odd. It's been strange that like we just did an event at a Yeti store in Dallas, this last week we were at the Dallas Safari Club show. And then we put on a party at the Yeti store there, and we had like 200 to 300 people come to it, and I signed a ton of autographs and took a ton of photos with people. And that I find really strange, because I'm like, you really want me to deface this thing with my signature? But mostly I just appreciate like the people. I get stopped all the time in airports or like in Home Depot and take pictures with people, and people are mostly just proud of like what's happening in a small town in Montana. And it also shows that like the American dream is still possible. Yeah. Like it's hard, but I tell people like, get up earlier and go to bed later, and don't maybe go to a football game on Saturday, maybe work all day, like on your passion.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to make some sacrifices. Like you're going to have to not go hang with your bros maybe on Saturday. Or maybe get up earlier and put in 8 hours and then go hang with them. It's difficult, but the American dream's possible. And I think people also love seeing like a nationally recognized brand coming out of Montana.
Yes.
Like homegrown.
Dang, yes. I'm really proud of you. I'm proud of that.
Really cool.
Proud of you for that.
I appreciate that. And we're proud of our state. And it's the reason I called it Montana Knife Company. For years, I would go to knife shows, and, for my custom stuff, people would walk up to my table, would be talking, and they were like, "Oh yeah, where are you from?" And I'd be like, "Montana." And be like, "Oh, I want to go there someday." Like, that's my dream forever, is to go see Glacier Park or to go elk hunt in Montana or fly fish. I saw it on the river runs through it, or, Montana's aspirational, and so I think people have found our story to be inspirational, but I think part of it's because of that Montana effect. And also the fact that like, I think this country would be a lot better if you had 1,000 Montana knife companies all over the nation in tiny towns, and I think it can help reinvigorate like American manufacturing. Like when I say small, like say under 50 employees, under 100 employees, American manufacturing all through this country could reinvigorate a lot of these areas. And it's sad when you drive through a lot of these towns out in eastern Montana or different places in other states, and they're dwindling because it's hard to make a living there. Yeah. So
Josh, no doubt you've met some cool people and have some amazing stories. I know recently, the end of 2023, you were on Fox Business on Black Friday. And I'm just curious, who has the nicer studio, the Missoula podcast or Fox Business?
I was on Fox Business and Fox News, Fox and Friends. Definitely your studio is nice. I would say,
yes, we're going places, Steven.
Here's what I would say. Their studio is actually nicer. Like the one little area you see on camera, the rest of the building, and like the fact that, when I was there, I was basically standing in a closet. When you walk through your building, like the whole thing's nice. So like on the average, you definitely.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, look at that.
We're making it, Mom and Dad.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what's been the most like dramatic change in your like personal life over the last 3 years? I mean, I know you're saying it's like weird people take pictures with you and so on and so forth, but anything else that's changed with your kids or your wife or even your hobbies?
Honestly, just the level of, I thought I was busy before, but the level of just busyness trying to figure out how to grow a brand like this, like it's 24 hours a day. And I mean, the best change is I don't have to get up and go to work in Missoula. I can be like, our shop is actually on our property, so I can walk out to the shop, but I don't have to deal with Reserve Street traffic, which is really nice.
Where have you
lucky
gone
son
wrong?
of a gun.
What have been some of the failures, mistakes you've made in the last 3 years?
That's a good question. You know, I think, I don't know if I would call them necessarily failures, because if I was to do it all over again, I think the process has been necessary. You know, within the business itself, I think, you know, we struggled with some of the, and I think it's natural, but like, you're busy worrying about making a knife, but then also you're not necessarily setting up the back end of the business to support it quite as well. Some of the financial, like organization, accounting, you know, we had some struggles with that stuff, trying to get that set up. And again, there's only so many hours in the day. And it's like, well, if you're in the shop making knives with your kids, then who's, and, you know, and say Brandon's working on the marketing side, but then who's working on the business side? And I'm still learning a ton about the way that financing works, the way that, like right now we're actually trying to buy land out at the Y right now and move. I also think, I don't know that this was a huge failure, but like if we'd have moved a little quicker on like getting land and expanding and growing and building faster, we'd have been able to grow even faster. But I also was really hesitant to not, and I still am today, to get over our skis and take a giant gamble and have it maybe not work out and then kill it. Like, I think people get too greedy with wanting growth. The growth we've had is amazing, but it honestly could have been a lot more. But also, had we taken those gambles, like maybe we'd have made different decisions under the pressure and we'd have made bad decisions. Yeah. There hasn't been a lot of like quote unquote failure, but there's been a lot of hard lessons learned with just like the process and using the wrong vendors for stuff and not being organized well enough on some of that stuff.
I'd imagine that the size you guys got to in 3 years, the curve in your learning from distribution to shipping to accounting to receivables. I mean, you had to learn on your feet while you're going.
Yeah. Yeah, we still are.
Yeah. Just crazy.
Yeah.
What's next for Montana Knife Company? What's coming in the future?
You know, we've largely been a drop model, which means we did that because we didn't borrow money. We bootstrapped all of it, right? And we didn't take on big investment. So we made knives, we sold them, and then we made more. What that left us was only a certain amount of knives. And then once they were gone, we'd have a gap and then we'd sell more. And that actually drove, kind of by accident, a lot of excitement around the brand and a lot of talk. And then we kind of thought, well, gosh, once we go in stock with knives and they're there all the time, the excitement will go away and it'll calm down. What we found last year is once we finally got knives in stock, it just doubled down our business, because, you know, if it's your dad's birthday or your mom's birthday or your buddy, you could just go to our website anytime and buy a knife. And the drops were almost a barrier to entry. And they also went so fast that if you weren't a customer and you didn't know, like, no, when we say 7, we mean like 7, like buy it as fast as you can. People come in there at 7:10 and 500 knives are gone. And so, this year is going to be heavy of moving more knives in stock. And then we have, I think, 21 new knife models coming out this year, which is bonkers.
Yeah.
So a lot of new, in the hunt world. And then we're going to be moving hard into the tactical space, which is like police officers, people like self-defense stuff and everyday carry type things. And then maybe potentially also a fair amount with like the military. And that's kind of the goal of that. And then also, you know, the culinary, like more stuff for the kitchen, for the chef. Cause honestly, like, I think it's like 3% of the people in the United States have a hunting license. So we've built this company in like the hardest space possible. Yeah. But 100% of people cook. So our potential on the culinary side is just massive. Not to mention the folder, but the folder is going to have to probably wait till we're in our next building. But we're working with WGM Group and engineering firm here and with architects, and we're trying to get through the process on buying land to grow to the next site.
Yeah.
So
It's awesome.
That's awesome. I really appreciate what you guys are doing here. And obviously you want to keep the roots here in Montana.
we do. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite knife? Looking
Yeah,
back
that's
at
a
Montana Knife Company, like is there one of the models that's just close to your heart?
I mean, like today I'm carrying our mini speed goat, but I honestly, the Blackfoot knife. So I've named most of our knives after something in Montana.
Yeah.
The Blackfoot knife was the first knife we came out with as a company. I look at that knife as like the idea behind it was you could do anything in the Blackfoot Valley, like fishing, hunting, just everyday carry out on the ranch or farm or whatever. And to me, that knife still just kind of is a do it all. And I'm also, I'm partial to it just because it's the knife that got us going, and it was a huge success right out of the gate. We have our Stonewall knife, which is a cool, like skinning knife, and it's named after Stonewall Mountain in Lincoln. There's different things that we've done with our knives and naming and stuff to try to throw a bone to, the Beartooth knife, the Beartooth Mountains, Absarki area, so.
I love your packaging. Like you make it an experience for your clients too. It's not just in bubble wrap and here's your knife. Like the box, the quality item.
I appreciate that. We kind of wrap them in that brown paper, almost like, like you see the old butcher paper of the way like steaks are wrapped up, and you kind of unwrap it like you're unwrapping a package of steaks for dinner, but it's a knife. Yeah.
Recently we were in Nashville and my wife was shopping in like a boutique. They wrapped her purchase in paper and put in a bag, and it was like this experience. And it's very similar on the dude side. You're wrapping these hunting knives. Making an experience that you open up.
Yeah. We do some cool printing on the box, and we ended up having, and unfortunately, I kind of hate the plastic bag thing, but we ended up having to put those knife boxes in a black plastic bag because we're getting so many of them stolen in the mail. When it says Montana Knife Company, it's got this cool scene on the box. It's like easy for people throughout the postal system and front porch people to be like, well, I know what that is. I'm going to take that. And especially when we got more recognized, we were dealing with a lot of that. So yeah, you get the bag, but then once you get it out of the bag, then you've got that box.
Entrepreneurs, young people starting off, is there any encouragement or piece of advice that you'd give them to just help them in their journey or story?
Yeah. I mean, even today, as I look at like what we're trying to build and grow, if you look at the whole, like if I look at everything that we're trying to do in the next 5 to 10 years, it's overwhelming. And so the thing is like eat that elephant one bite at a time. Right. So just start with do something, but do something every single day towards your dream or your goal. But also like, I do get people like, oh, I'm going to quit my job and I want to start this just like you did. And I was like, oh yeah, where you at on the idea or where you at on the project? Well, I haven't started. I got to quit this job. And it's like, no, man, like that job gives you security. You need to get up earlier. Like it is going to be a ton of work. And then don't be afraid to go out and get help where you lack. Like our marketing, that's Brandon. Like I could have tried to be greedy and keep all the company to myself. I gave him a significant share of the company because I also wanted him all in. I was like, well, if this grows into something huge, we're both going to do fine.
Right.
But if I give him 2% of the company day one, like where's his motivation to spend a lot of time on the company? But I knew my limitations. Like I didn't have the expertise for the marketing side. And there's reasons that people have careers and have gone to school and put in all the time they have to get where they have. So like know your lane, know your role and what you're good at. And then don't be afraid to go find help or to even like with our knives in the beginning with outsourcing certain processes to a job shop that's a manufacturing, machine shop or whatever, and say, I don't have that machine. I'm going to have you guys make it. So like figure out what you're good at, Concentrate on that. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be too small-minded. Don't be afraid to share a portion of your idea, especially if you find somebody you're passionate that's passionate with you. And then don't get overwhelmed by the overall, how daunting that overall dream is. Just do something every single day, like consistency.
Josh, how involved are you in the day-to-day operations of the business at this point? 3 years in, are you still on the floor with the team, or are you
I'm
growing
more,
the business, strategic relationships outside of the shop?
Definitely more like the strategic relationship. Like I'm in the shop every single day. I mean, this morning, I had to change really fast, but this morning I was cutting holes in walls and I was hanging dust collection piping, and like, I'm very involved in the strategy. I'm very involved on the floor. When we had a couple guys gone here in the fall, I was down sharpening knives, but like I'm generally not as involved in the day-to-day knife production. But I'm involved in like the strategic planning, like all this land, the building, hiring the right people. I still don't know a lot of stuff. So like I am still just as much today as I was 3 years ago, researching and trying to find like, I look at this as like 1,000-piece puzzle, and we're about 150 pieces in. Like, I think we've built a pretty decent border, but now we have to fill it.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, what's the next most important piece? Because also maybe you don't have the funding, or even if we have the money to do it, maybe the timing isn't right to just try to get all the pieces. Because we're not ready for it. I feel like a lot like building a skyscraper, like you need a solid foundation. And if you rush through that too fast, like the whole thing's going to crumble eventually when the weight gets to be too much. So, but no, I'm in the shop every single day. But I'm also, we pay well. And my thing is like, I am more than willing to pass off something I'm doing if someone's better at it and can accomplish like what's best for the company. So, and I've gotten phenomenal people that way.
That's awesome. Has it been hard for you to let go?
No, because you have to, if you want to grow what I have like planned, it's not possible. Like you have to trust people, empower people, and also make them feel like they're like they have ownership in it, and that people will work a lot better for you if they feel like they're being listened to and their ideas. And if you hire the right people, their ideas are going to be probably pretty good, so that you get passion out of employees by hiring and by empowering them.
Well, no, Josh, thank you so much for taking time out your busy schedule and away from your team to come visit with us. Appreciate your heart, your story, the impact you're making on the Missoula community, the jobs, love the American made, the product, just everything you do is quality. And thanks for being here today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think there's so many people moving into our state, and there's so much talk of growth and subdividing and housing, and we need housing for this and housing for that. People need jobs.
Yeah.
So like you can have all the housing in the world, but like people need to be able to afford to, like I look at, I have a daughter who's 19, almost 20. I have a daughter that's graduating this year, 2 more kids behind them. How the hell are they going to afford to buy a house in this valley? And the only way is if we as Missoulians and really as like our government officials and everybody are seeking out and trying to bring in also businesses that do pay well, like not just service level jobs, but like manufacturing jobs where we're hiring engineers and, machinists and people who are making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year. But then also like, your low level employees, your entry level employees are still being paid, like a good solid wage. And then they have a runway. And that's where I believe with our company, there is a runway up through, there's a path to like grow. I want to grow our employees from within. I look a lot like when I was a lineman, like an apprenticeship. Like it's better to hire, you were a groundman. Once you proved yourself there, you got an apprenticeship. And then as you gained trust, they gave you more responsibility, you gained more knowledge, and eventually you were a really solid lineman. I look at employment as the same way. Like you have to gain our trust. You have to show us you can work, and you got to shovel the crap out of the barn. But when you do that over time and you gain that trust, like down the road, you move your way up, and now you know the brand from the bottom up, which makes you a better leader, better executive, better boss. So I think Missoulians need to also demand that we also attract and help businesses come here. And everybody kind of talks about, you know, the big corporate machine and corporate monster, but like we're a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
Started in my 2-car garage, right? Like not all corporations are Amazon. Like a lot of corporations are 15, 20, 50 people, 100 people.
And small business. I mean,
yeah,
it's the backbone of our economy.
It is. So yeah, we need jobs so our native people can live here. Otherwise it's just going to be all people from out of state moving in here with big wallets, but they don't necessarily provide kids to the school system and coaching teams and all the things that I've done and all my friends have done over the past with being involved in the community. You know,
it's awesome. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Thanks for stopping in.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate what you guys are doing. It's great for the Valley.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh.
Yep.